everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then definitely hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out a whole lot. My name is SILEM, very pleased to meet you. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a pencil trouser. I already have a video on my channel where I show you how to make a palazzo trouser. So if you haven't watched that video, then definitely click the link right here. In this video, I'm actually going to be making a khaki trouser for Nysc. If you don't know what Nysc is, it's simply a one-year program where graduates, Nigerian graduates, serve their country. So where they get posted to different parts of the country and they have to serve their country by working in their place of primary assignment. Long story, point is I'm making Nysc khaki trousers for this video. Now this khaki trouser is a basic pencil trouser. The only difference at the knee area, I'm going to be adding pockets at the two sides just so that it has that, cargo pants feel. So if you want to make a regular pencil trouser, you can literally skip the parts where I added the pockets by the side and just go along with the rest of the video. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there.
So the first thing I did was fold my fabric in half, and now I'm marking the length I want my trouser to be. I want it to be 41 inches, and that's what I marked. Now I marked a baseline at the top, and then downwards from that baseline I marked 10 inches. Now I'm just marking the end of that 10 inches line, and then for the waist part, which is the baseline, I marked 1 inch. Now I'm folding her waist measurements by 4, or dividing her waist measurement by 4, and I marked that at the baseline, which serves as my waist, and then I added 2 inches allowance. Now her lap measurement is 24 inches. I divided that by 2, and then I marked that point and added 1 inch allowance. Now I'm just connecting those lines. Now from the baseline or from the waist, I'm marking 6 inches downwards. This is going to serve as my zipper fly, and then I'm drawing a curve from that lap line to meet that 6 inches line I drew before, and then I'm also making a dotted line to connect to the waist. From the waist again, I'm marking 19 inches downwards. That will serve as my knee, and then from that point I'm simply marking her knee measurements divided by 2, and I'm also marking her ankle measurements divided by 2, and I'm simply adding 1 inch allowance on both sides. Now I'm using my ruler to just draw a diagonal line to connect those points, and once I get to the knee, I made a curved line instead of a straight line, and now I'm just cutting along those lines. Now once that's done, I'm going to use that front piece as a pattern to cut the back one. To do that, I'm just folding in the zipper fly, because the back wouldn't have that zipper fly, so I just folded it in so I can get my measurements without it. Now I'm just adding 2 inches to the back measurement. Now if you notice, my fabric is not enough for me to really get that crotch for the back, so I'm simply going to join at that point. But before I do that, I'm just cutting the rest of the trouser. So from the waist to the crotch, I added 1 inch allowance for the back piece. As you can see, that point I need to join it. This point I'm cutting out now, I'm going to join it with some fabric just so that I can get that crotch for the back. So I'm going to join from that point to that point. But before we do that, I'm just going to mark where my pocket will sit. So from the waistline, I marked 6 inches and I just created a notch at that point. And then along that waist as well, I also marked 3 inches and then folded that part. Now I've gone ahead to join the fabric to the back piece. What I'm doing now is I'm just simply folding that allowance to match with the front piece, and then once I get to the point where the crotch of the back intersects with the crotch of the front. I'm marking that point with a chalk, and now I'm making sure that that point is 3 inches, and then I'm drawing a curve just like the one I did for the front to, you know, get that crotch length. But if your fabric is enough, you don't need to join it at that crotch side. You simply just go ahead and do this. Now moving on to the pocket, I'm going to attach to the sides. The length of the pocket is 8 inches and the width is also 8 inches. So I'm just marking that, and now I'm just cutting along that line. Now for the cover of the pocket, I'm also going to mark 8 inches for that, but the width is 3 inches. So that's what's going to cover the pocket. Now I'm also cutting a band 8 inches long and 3 inches wide. And this is the band I'm going to put right at the center of the pocket. So that's going to go right at the center like that, and I'm going to sew that. And then the other one is going to be the cover of the pocket. Now for the cover of the pocket, I'm cutting 2 pieces for each pocket, but the other parts is just going to be 1 piece. So for the pocket, I'm putting, you know, close to the waist by the sides. I'm taking 10 inches as the length and 7 inches as the width, and I'm cutting 2 pieces. Now once that's done, I'm simply marking 3 inches from the end or the one edge of the pocket where I'm going to put the fabric so it blends with the rest of the trouser. And then I just carved out the pockets. Now I'm sewing just a piece of fabric at that point. What this would do is that since I'm not using the fabric for the pockets, the fabric I actually attach here will help cover the pocket. So the part that shows is the fabric and not the pockets. You see what I mean in a minute. But if you're using the fabric to cut the pockets, you don't need to do this step. All you have to do is cut the pocket with the fabric and go ahead and just fix it on your trouser. So now this is my trouser where I'm going to attach the pockets, and that's the width and length I used. And then I folded and ironed that flat. Now I'm just folding the pockets, and then I'm placing the piece of the trouser, like the front piece of the trouser, on the pocket, and then using that part I folded, I'm just marking where it lies on the pocket, and then I'm cutting out that diagonal line. I open the part I folded and I'm also cutting it as well. And once I do that, I'm now going to align those two slanted parts together, and then I'm going to sew them together. Then I'm going to open that up and then top stitch, making sure that the allowance is facing the pocket, which is the lining. Then I'm going to fold that in and also fold the pocket again. Flip it over, and then I'm going to sew at the top there so that the pocket sits nicely and doesn't move around. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, or rather I'm just going to tack that end, like the end of the pocket where that folded line is. I hope that makes sense, guys. Now I'm going to take the pocket and I'm going to sew it closed, and then once I sew it closed, I'm going to go ahead and weave out the rough edge And that's what we have. That's our pocket done. So I went ahead to do the same thing for the other front piece. Now moving on to the back piece, I simply folded the back piece in half so I can put in my dart. And then once I folded that in half, I just did a dart that was that started with 1/2 inch wide and was 5 inches long. Once I'm done with my back piece, I'm taking one of the front piece to align with one of the back pieces, and then I'm just sewing that. I'm starting off with sewing 1.5 inch allowance, and then I'm reducing my allowance a bit as I go along because the waist has to be very cinched, that's why it's tight, but the rest of it doesn't have to be as tight as the waist. So I simply just use 1.5 inch at the start and then reduce that measurement as I sewed along. Now moving on to the pockets, I'm just taking the part that goes right at the center and I'm just sewing that. I folded it and then I'm sewing it together. And now I'm using a pair of scissors to just turn it to the right side. Turn the band to the right side. Now I'm just taking the that band, and I'm placing it right at the center. But before we sew that down, I'm just taking the 2 pieces of the pocket cover and then I'm just sewing them right sides facing. And then I'm turning that to the right side. And that's done. This is what it will look like once I set it up. Now I went ahead to weave the edges of all the pieces. Then I'm folding the pocket down, all the sides down, and then I ironed it flat. Now I'm just simply marking the center of the pocket. The width of the pocket after folding it is 7 inches, but by the time I get the center, that's 3.5 inches. So I'm just making sure that that band stays right at the center. And I'm just going to sew that down. First of all, I sewed the part of the pocket that's going to be facing upwards because you know that side is not going to be sewn down to the trouser. I just sewed that side alone, and now I'm sewing the band to the pocket. Make sure that you pin down your band. It helps you to keep everything in place. Now from the waist of the pocket, I'm simply marking 17 inches. That is where my pocket is going to be. You know the knee is 19 inches, so it makes sense that the pocket goes upwards a bit. So I just place the pocket at that point and then I'm sewing it around. And I'm leaving the top open because obviously that's where you can put in anything to the pocket. Now the pocket cover, I'm just placing it above the pocket and then I'm just sewing that down. As you can see, this is what it looks like. I just went ahead to iron it to make everything nice and flat. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to take the second piece and I'm going to sew the crotch area. Mind you, when I sewed one piece of my front to one piece of my back, I repeated that process for the other 2 pieces. So you should have 2 pieces of the front and the back joined together. I'm also going to sew the other side, the crotch area, the other side as well. I sew the front first and then I'm sewing the back. Now opening that from the side seam, this is what we have. And I'm simply going to make sure that the crotch, the seams at the crotch area align. And then I'm going to sew from that seam all the way down to the bottom or the ankle of the trouser. I'm going to do this for this side, side, and the other side as well. Once I've done that, we have a beautiful trouser, and we're almost done. Now we're going to put our zipper on the fly. What I did was I simply loosened that seam at the fly area, and then I'm marking the point where the fly ends, and I'm going to tack that point. Once I've done that, I've turned that to the right side, and now I'm taking my zipper. Before I take my zipper, I'm simply marking the point where I'm going to put the zipper. Now I'm placing my zipper to the fly right sides facing, so I'm making sure that the right side of the zipper faces the right side of the fly, and then I'm just sewing along that line I had marked. Once I've done that, I'm going to put the bottom part of the zipper inside, and then I'm going to try to use the fly to cover the zipper and just see how I can really arrange it so it's nice and covered. Once I've arranged it properly, I'm simply going to just start from that point and then sew right in front. I just made sure that the zipper and the fly were sewn together. This is what we have, and now I'm just bringing down the zipper, and then I'm cutting out the excess. But before I cut out the excess, I'm simply just going to tack it at that point so that it's nice and secure. And then I'm just going to cut out the excess zipper. Once I'm done with that, I'm just taking my band. I simply cut a 5-inch wide, 60-inch long band. So I'm just closing one end or sewing one end closed. And then once I'm done with that, I'm just going to turn that to the right side, and then I'm going to place the band on the waist of my trouser, and then I'm just going to sew that with 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to sew that all the way around the waist, and then I'm going to cut out the excess. Once we're done, this is what we have. Our trouser is literally done. I just went ahead to put in belt holes, and we're done, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.